Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and today patch 7.39D dropped, as we kind of expected it to drop either last week or this week. And so there was some time between my tier lists and the patch, but we're going to take a look at it as usual. Actually, it's kind of a small patch. It's not that big. Not that I was expecting anything huge, but we'll see if this is like the last patch. Maybe there'll be another letter patch before TI. It's hard to say. I was thinking maybe they would do like a 7.4 or something. Maybe, but I guess they're just going to do like a D and then maybe an E patch. I don't know. We'll see before TI comes with the big tournaments coming up if they're going to do any other bigger patches or if it's just going to be small balance changes. I don't think the game is at that bad of a spot now, honestly. So it makes sense if they just want to make small changes here and there and kind of nerf all the strong stuff. That's actually not that bad, I think, because the game's in a decent spot. But anyway, let's just jump into the general changes. First, we have terrain changes, and the only one that was really that big of a deal is that they increased the spawn boxes of the Triangle Ancient camps, which means they're harder to stack now. So I haven't really tested it out, but we'll see if it'll be harder to get off those double stacks of the big camp and the ancient camp at the same time. Also just makes it harder for heroes like Beastmaster or Bristle or other offlaners that want those stacked to end up retreating into the jungle and farming them. It seems like they're kind of nerfing those heroes in general anyway, but then they're also nerfing that playstyle. Then they just fixed some ward spots here that aren't that big of a deal, honestly. Just like kind of in the laning stage, can you sentry inside of one of these camps to make it blocked or not? They're kind of just messing with that meta a little bit. Haven't really tested it out too much, but that's pretty much what they're doing there is the laning stage sentry kind of block meta is what they're adjusting with these tree spots and stuff. Then getting into the item changes here, we actually have some pretty big ones. Blade Mail has been nerfed kind of into oblivion, honestly. The 3 damage decrease overall, not huge, but it is significant. But really, honestly, the damage return passive attack damage decreased from 20 plus 20% to 10 plus 15. I feel like that's huge. I haven't tested it out to get the feel for it yet, but just overall, that number nerf just feels really bad. And I feel like this is a huge nerf to Blade Mail. It kind of was one of the, if not the item of the patch. Pretty much everybody was buying it if they were a normal Blade Mail buyer, and a lot of the good Blade Mail heroes were very good, especially from the offlane, so it kind of makes sense they're nerfing Blade Mail. We'll see if that like kills the item, or this could potentially just really switch up what heroes are good in the offlane. We'll have to see how this ends up playing out. And honestly, this might be the biggest change in the entire patch. It's like the first big change for an item here. Then they also nerfed Dragonlance and Hurricane Pike, the range by 10. That's not huge, but obviously it was kind of a ranged carry meta in a lot of different ways. There were a lot of good ranged carries, so nerfing this makes sense as well. Glimmer Cape has been good for 4,550 years, so it makes sense they're nerfing it again because they keep nerfing it, but 1 second, is that 1 second cooldown a big deal? Not much, but it makes sense because it's still a great item. Making Heaven's Halberd a little bit better with the 0.5 second increase on melee targets and 0.5 seconds on range as well. So not a huge deal. Maelstrom, kind of small nerf to illusions. That doesn't do extra damage to illusions now, which is interesting. So I feel like they're kind of trying to bring back PL, kind of trying to bring back the illusion meta because we haven't seen PL, we haven't seen Naga, we haven't really seen CK. I mean, CK was sort of in and out of the meta as like an offlaner or weird different styles here and there, but otherwise, we really haven't seen these kind of illusion heroes. The only illusions we've ever really seen are like Luna and Medusa illusions. That's really it, to be honest. So it might be creeping up to be more of an illusion patch. Maybe not this specific one, but in the next 6 months to a year, if they do any other kind of big change to illusions or something, look out for those heroes. I mean, PL is already kind of creeping up anyway, so, but this is a big deal for those heroes, obviously, and even for trying to clear through anybody that buys Manta as well. Then we have Mask of Madness, and they decreased the attack speed by 10, and I'm not really sure that this is necessary. I mean, the people that buy, or the heroes that buy Mask of Madness, they're just going to buy Mask of Madness for the most part. I mean, I guess like a hero like Jug could buy it or something like that, or there's heroes like, I don't know, Luna, there's heroes like Faceless Void. There's some heroes that buy it, but then sometimes they don't, or like Sven. So I don't know if this is just going to kill the item. I mean, it's not a huge nerf, but I'm just surprised they nerfed it at all. I don't think this was like a broken item or anything. It wasn't that good of an item. Like the heroes that were buying it were decent, but they weren't amazing. So I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting change to me. I don't necessarily know it was necessary, but it's not the biggest change anyway. Octarine Core minus 50 health and mana. Not a huge change there, but this has been a popular item in the late game for a long time. Pavis hasn't really been bought for a while. I feel like there was a patch maybe a year or two ago when this was first introduced that people were buying it more, but it seems to be not really super favorable right now. So in decreasing it by almost 50% in terms of mana cost, that's actually a pretty big deal for supports that are low mana. that want to buy this. Then Phylactery's been like, and Conda specifically have been dead ever since they changed it. But I feel like this is one of those items that's kind of creeping up to potentially be good. And when it did get nerfed, people were like, we're not buying it anymore. You know, it's not like a carry thing. Luna's not buying it. But I do think having a break on a, you know, ranged kind of spellcasting hero can be good. But also, as they keep buffing it here and there a little bit by bit, I think people will end up realizing, oh, wait, this is kind of good. I know people have still been trying to make it work on like Oracle mid and stuff like that. But I think this is kind of creeping up to the realm of people just underestimate Phylactery and Conda in general because of when it was nerfed. And then all of a sudden it might just like, you know, snap, and one day it's actually broken, even with a small change like this. So just look out for that. Maybe it's not going to be this patch, but sometime in the future. And then Witchblade and Parasma have been good for a long time. So just decreasing the armor by 1 on each of those items. Not a huge deal again, but especially because heroes like Queen of Pain and these other heroes that are usually intelligence heroes or something like that buy this item. 1 armor can be a big deal for those heroes because they don't usually buy armor or they don't usually get a lot of agility and stuff like that. So it makes sense. That can be more significant on heroes that like to buy these items. But again, not huge, just that this Witchblade and Parasma have been good for a very, very long time. So it makes sense a small nerf there. And then obviously we have the neutral items that I never talk about because it's not a big deal. You just pick what's recommended and what's good for your specific hero and position. There's barely ever a time where you actually have to make any choice or think about it, which is why it's kind of useless and it needs to be removed from the game. But whatever, I understand. I kind of rant about that all the time. But anyway, we'll move on to hero changes, which are the important part. But there aren't a lot of big ones, honestly. I'll go through them pretty quick. They're really not that big of a deal. So I usually don't like to make these videos long. I know some people comment every once in a while, like, oh, you just skip all the hero, blah, blah, blah. They like freak out. But it's like, dude, I'm trying to make a small video. If you want to watch a 10-hour video on a patch that does nothing, go watch Purge. So many other people do that. I just like to like highlight the main ones, but not skip everything. So go through it, but hit the highlights, because the first one, the reason why I'm kind of prefacing that is this Aphotic Shield provides HP regen decrease from 12 to 10. That doesn't really matter as a level 10 talent. I mean, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but 2 HP regen, kind of not a big deal. The Axe ones are small nerfs, like Mana Cost on Berserker's Call, and the Kill Armor bonus from Culling Blade. Again, not the biggest of deal, but on a low mana hero generally, this can add up over time, 10 mana at max level. And then the armor after you get a kill can help you survive, so that can be important and stuff, and obviously with the AoE and everything. So that does have significance in the game somewhat, but these are small nerfs, and this is a hero that is very good. I think the bigger nerf actually for Axe is more the Blade Mail nerf, to be honest. These ones aren't that big of a deal. It's more Blade Mail. That's the big thing. Then Bat Rider is pretty good, so they're just decreasing the agility and damage at level 1 in small ways, and the radius on Flame Break. Again, not a huge deal, not fundamental to what the hero does, but has been kind of on the upswing. People in pubs, pro-level pubs and pro games have been favoring this somewhat, so it makes sense. Bloodseeker, they're trying to buff the hero back to being somewhat relevant because it's in the dumpster, but I think, again, they should just switch it back to what it was and nerf the numbers. I'm going to say that every time they try to change Bloodseeker. So they're buffing the Ag Scepter heal with pure damage by 5%, which is significant, and they're increasing the damage on Bloodright. But again, I think you just kind of nuked the hero with, what it does fundamentally. So I don't think it's going to bring it back into the meta anytime soon. Then Bounty Hunter's been sticking around in the meta as a 4 position for a while. So it's kind of interesting that the allies bonus gold has been increased, because I feel like this hero has just been hovering around A or B tier or whatever as a 4 position for a while. So interesting buff there. Not, again, a huge deal, but it's just funny that they did that. Same thing with Crystal Maiden. I feel like this hero is pretty good, and they gave a damage increase early levels to Freezing Field. Not a huge deal, 5 damage, what is that really? 10 damage second level, and then the same maxed out. So again, not a big deal, but interesting they're buffing a hero that I thought was already pretty good. Then Dark Willow, kind of a weird change. Allies can no longer target Dark Willow while Shadow Realm's active. Is that a big deal? I mean, I guess you can't, put a urn on somebody, or if somebody else has urn and you're Dark Willow, they can't earn you and stuff like that, or they can't save you or whatever. So that can be somewhat significant, but again, not a huge deal. Then Dawnbreaker. This hero's been good for a while from the off lane, so the Luminosity cooldown for Solar Charged has decreased, and then the level 15 talent for the Solar Guardian cooldown reduction has been decreased as well. Again, another one where these are decent nerfs, kind of small, but decent. And I think more Blade Mail is a big nerf for the hero, although you don't necessarily have to buy it on this hero. So it is one of those things where Axe, you have to buy it every game, but Dawnbreaker, you don't. So it might not actually be as big of a deal for this hero with these tiny nerfs and the Blade Mail nerf. Then we have Dazzle coming back into the meta more as a support these days. So they're kind of nerfing the support version of the hero, just to heal mana costs and stuff like that. Again, not a huge deal for the hero that has a lot of mana, but obviously the weave duration decreased from 10 to 8 seconds can be significant. So I just think that the more they kind of do stuff like this, the more they make the core version of Dazzle even worse, which it's been pretty bad for a while. But because it's come back sort of as a support, then it makes sense they're kind of getting rid of this. Then Doom's been hanging around in high-level pubs in the pro meta, so they're just making the farming from Devour worse by 20 gold. Again, not a big deal. I'm going to say that with pretty much every hero, but it is one of those things that it might make it worse in like high-level pubs and pro games, but this hero doesn't get picked in normal pubs anyway all that much. So when you nerf it like this, then it kind of makes it go away, I think, even more in general pubs. It's just kind of a weird hero to balance in that way, because it's one of those things. There are heroes like Batrider like that too, where, you know, it might be great in high-level MMR or high-level pubs and pros, but then like no one else is picking it, so it's kind of weird. Earth Spirit, they basically increased the minimum damage. So there was a huge damage spread. So basically, if you didn't know that, when you're trying to hit a creep, let's say level 1, early stage, laning stage, you're picking Earth Spirit mid, and you go to hit a creep without any other items like, you know, branches or anything, you could either do 47 damage or 57 damage, which is kind of insane. That's kind of absurd, because that's a big, wide range of potential damages to try to get last hit. So they just kind of brought that up to 53 to 57. So actually the damage that it shows in game for how much damage you have is a flat number, but it's like the average of the two. So you will see a damage increase in terms of the actual number you're seeing, but it's just the minimum number, which just makes it not as random, which is kind of good. This kind of weird thing that you do multiple different damages, I actually don't mind that, but it is a little bit weird when it's super different, like 10 damage. It's kind of insane. I think CK is another one, just because that hero is a little bit random, that has a pretty wide damage margin as well. So there are some weird, odd heroes that just do like 100 damage or 50 or something like that. You know, it's kind of weird. Then we have Ember. This hero's just been good for my entire lifetime, so it makes sense they're increasing mana. But again, not a huge change. Enchantress, experience bounty for the creep. Whatever, that doesn't matter. Faceless Void's kind of a bad hero right now. I just feel like he's not a great carry. People were trying to pick him and use Time Zone in a couple patches ago, and then that got nerfed or whatever, and now that's bad. I thought it was bad then too. I just hated it all the time. But now they're increasing everything. They're making the cooldown better for Chronosphere and Time Zone, and they're making Time Lock do a little bit more damage, which is only the early level, so it's actually not a huge deal, but just makes this hero farm more, have better laning presence, which can be significant. So I feel like Faceless Void is one of those in pubs and late game you can never really count out, so just watch out for this hero to kind of jump up in the meta a little bit, if not going to S tier, which I don't think these are big enough to go to S tier, making it like at least A or B, which I think it's been pretty bad for a while now. Then Grimstroke just feels like this hero's not been good for a long time, so they're increasing the decreasing the cooldown of Phantom's Embrace and increasing the stun of Inkswell, which I actually played this hero a little bit in turbo games when I was doing the all hero challenge. I actually feel like it felt pretty good. Now, that is if you get farm and you get ags, it can actually feel pretty insane, and you're not going to get ags all that easily, but it does feel like not a terrible hero. So watch out for it to come back into the meta sometime soon. We'll see if that happens. I feel like it can be on the upswing, especially with these kinds of buffs. Then next we have Io, and kind of not really a big pub hero. Cooldown decreased for spirits, but again, does that really matter? I mean, maybe this is good for carry Io, but we haven't seen that in a while. Kunkka's been seemingly in the meta for a year or so now, just always seems to come back no matter how much they change this hero. And this is pretty significant because that 75 range on the Cleave of Tidebringer at the max level, I mean, that could be a lot of the difference between hitting a hero and not, and getting that kill and not. So as a Kunkka player that plays a decent amount of this hero, that can be significant. It's all about feel, though, like how much are you really hitting the max range sometimes, but obviously that does matter as you get into the higher levels and later in the game and stuff like that, or even in the laning stage when you're maxing this out. Like if you go up to hit the creeps and the guy's just out of range of the creeps, like, and he has a little bit further to walk, and you're just going to hit him or not, that can be the difference between dominating the laning stage, you know, after 5 minutes or not. So it can be a pretty significant deal on Kunkka. Then Luna, this cooldown decreased for Eclipse, and the level 10 Lucent Beam mini stun increased. Look out for support Luna or magic damage Luna, because this is the buff for Luna in that sense. So look out for that in your pubs. I don't know if this is enough. It's kind of a meme, but look out for that, because people, if they can try it and they want to try it, like they will, and any kind of buff to it might make people just go crazy for it. So watch out for that to be like a real thing. I don't think it is, but maybe it is. Mirana, maximum damage for the arrow increased. Again, not a big deal. Just 180 on all levels, so only early is that really a big deal. And then Monkey King, we have some nerfs here, changing of the guard nerf a little bit. Not a huge deal, but this was pretty good as a facet and makes you just not able to fly around in your ultimate as much. And then Boundless Strike. This is actually pretty big because everyone was buying the shard, not just because you can, like, you know, kind of have this mobility of flying to the end of your Boundless Strike, but also it's one of those underestimated things where it actually applied Primal Spring's max power at 60%, and now it only does 40%. And the main thing is that you're just not getting that slow in there, which the slow is pretty significant after the stun, and obviously that damage and stuff too, but it's really the slow just kind of sticking on enemies. So you could use this on an enemy, fly to that location, and then they're slowed, then you get to hit them a bunch and stuff like that. So it's just not as big of a deal, and Monkey probably deserved the nerf. I think this is actually a pretty big nerf. It's kind of maybe one that people might underestimate, but it seems pretty significant. Then Naga's been one that I kind of thought that the support version was dead, but then I looked at the ban list of recent pro tournaments, and this hero's been banned a ton. So I guess the pro support version of Naga has still been pretty good. So they're just kind of nerfing that all around with the Song of the Siren radius decrease overall, but only early on, but still. And then duration decrease for Deluge as well for this facet. So I don't know. I would prefer the support or the carry over the support Naga Siren in general. I just would rather see like Naga and PL and CK come back into the meta as illusion heroes. Actually, the only illusion hero that was even good forever in the last 5 years has been Terrorblade, and that is barely an illusion hero. It is an illusion hero, of course, but it's just kind of annoying. I'd rather see these heroes kind of come back into the meta in some ways, although it can be very annoying when it is an illusion meta. Then we have Nature's Prophet, who is getting another nerf. This hero gets nerfed every single patch, but somehow comes back as a support or a core. People just love playing it. And agility gain decreased from 3.2 to 3.0, just 3 flat, which I personally do not love this change, just because this hero, I think, already had an agility gain decrease a couple patches ago, maybe 6 months ago, whenever it was, from 3.6 to 3.2. And one of the things that made this hero extremely unique was the fact that it had such a high agility gain for not being an agility hero. I think, what is it, a universal hero now, and it was an intelligence hero, or maybe it's still an intelligence hero. But regardless, for not an agility hero, it was top 10 or top 15 or something crazy in agility gain. And now it's all the way down to 3, which I understand it makes it not as good as a carry, because the agility gain is kind of what makes this a good carry because of the armor and the attack speed and all the things you're getting from agility. So it makes sense if it just keeps coming back as a carry that you're nerfing that. But I prefer this hero to be a carry. I would rather it be a full-out carry that does split pushing, and I would rather them, again, kind of like Naga, delete the support version. The support version is very annoying. I kind of hate it, and I don't want it to be around because it just feels cheesy, it feels weird, it feels gimmicky, and I don't love it. So honestly, just seeing that they're doing this, I'd rather them nerf other aspects of the hero. Make Sprout trash. Get rid of the facet. Don't make it a support spell. Don't make it heal or do damage. And then just keep it as a good right clicker, but delete a lot of the stuff that makes it a good support. That's what I would prefer. I don't know. Maybe you guys have a different opinion. I don't know what the whole Dota community prefers, but I just don't like when this hero is played in every position. I'd rather see it as a carry, maybe an off lane or something. I mean, maybe they could focus on, if they delete the right-click version, maybe they could make it only a kind of off-lane, maybe a aura bot or something that can teleport around. Maybe they could do that. Maybe that's what they're going for. Hard to say. But anyway, they also nerfed the soothing saplings and the sprout and all that kind of stuff, because that was the thing that was making this hero good again, because they already tried to nerf the big tree that they took away from the game. They just eliminated it completely, and now everyone was like, oh wait, the other facet was good all along, because I think they made that one a little bit better, and now it can play support and carry still and all the stuff, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, finally nerfing it again because it does need nerfs. I don't know how big of a deal this is, but really even this, this makes the support worse, and then this makes the carry worse. So we'll see if this hero drops out of the meta or is still popular even despite these nerfs. Then Necro, another one of the things that they do all the time. So Sadist health regen per kill increase, which is pretty significant. I mean, 0.5 is a lot. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does actually end up adding up to a lot over time when you start getting a lot of the creep kills and all that kind of stuff. Or when you get a bunch of the kills from killing heroes and stuff, it can add up over time because regen is so important for this hero. So it's not nothing, honestly, 0.5. And then the other problem is slow radius decreased. So why are you're buffing it here, but then you're decreasing the radius? Come on, just stop, guys. Just always, and with heroes that I love too, Necro's one of my favorite heroes, and they do this to him just to make me mad, I swear. But it's come on, guys, come on. Then Nyx has pretty much been dead since he couldn't farm anymore, so they're buffing him a little bit. But again, talents, not a huge deal. And level 20 talents at that, kind of whatever. Pango, armor reduction at level 10, -1. Again, not really fundamental to what the hero does. It's just a little bit worse. PA, completely dead hero, has a 40% win rate, but people still play it because it's still somewhat good in pubs. but they're still buffing the blur cooldown and the evasion at level 15. But again, not enough to make up for the fact that they kind of butchered the hero with changing stuff around, which I personally am not a huge fan of. But hey, it's still okay in pubs. Primal Beast, pulverized cooldown decreased by 2 seconds. Again, that's not a big deal, but I would love to see Primal Beast coming back into the meta because it feels like this hero has just been, it was good for a little while, and then it's been kind of bad, or at least just like average or below average for what feels like a year or so. So I'd love to see the hero, because it is a newer hero, come back into the meta. I still think it's decent if you know what you're doing, but it can have its bad games and bad matchups. Puck, the best mid hero for like 10 years. Agility gain decreased by 2. This is significant. Obviously, it's the same amount as the Nature's Prophet, but I don't think it's as big of a deal because Puck is not necessarily always a right clicker, although this hero does do a lot of damage with right clicks. So this, combined with the Parasma and Witchblade nerfs, can add up over time with the hero, but I still think this isn't enough to knock it. I mean, maybe it'll be enough to knock it out of S tier, but it'll probably still be A tier, to be honest. Unless some weird, crazy meta shift happens, I still think this hero is pretty good. And then Queen of Pain, another nerf, which this hero keeps getting nerfed because, one facet's good, then gets nerfed. Another one, they realize that's also really good, and so now that's getting nerfed. Or not really, the Succubus passive is getting nerfed, but in general, that playstyle is getting nerfed a little bit with the lifesteal in terms of the range and stuff. So 150 range is like nothing, honestly. Like that's like right next to your hero. So that's kind of interesting. But again, not a huge nerf, but overall the hero has been good, kind of like Puck for a long time. Then Sand King, base strength increased by 1, whatever. But the Sandstorm radius increased by 50. That's not insignificant. That's pretty big, actually, on something that, when they changed around the facets, they kind of killed the hero, where I liked that it was coming into the meta with different playstyles, with the invis or with the one that was following you. I kind of liked that. Then they kind of got rid of all that. So now it makes sense that the hero was kind of dead and they're buffing it again. I'd love to see the hero come back into the meta. It's it's not like one of my favorite heroes to play. I'm not like, oh, I love playing Sand King, but it's a hero that has a lot of like good parts to it that are really strong, but a lot of parts where you can really punish the hero if you know what you're doing. And I like those kinds of heroes because it doesn't feel broken when it's good. It just feels like really good, but you can still take advantage of its weaknesses. And so I like when this hero is good generally. Then Shadow Demon cast range increased by 25, kind of whatever for disruption. Not a big deal. Just better at saving, obviously, and stuff like that. Shadow Fiend, really good right now. So base armor decreased by 1 and armor reduction also decreased by 1. So armor for the hero isn't as good. Both as a hero that kind of just man fights people, it's just not nearly as good as it was. I mean, 1 armor in each direction can be significant. I don't know that this was, for me, this was a shaky top hero. It kind of felt weird that it bounced back into the top of the meta. And I felt like, okay, well, what really made that happen? It feels like, what is it, just because it's a ranged hero? Like, I don't know. So these nerfs, plus the fact that the range on Dragonlance and Hurricane Pike kind of got nerfed, that could be big for this hero not being great anymore, which I think, the Hurricane Pike and Dragonlance nerf probably were actually focused more on Shadow Fiend than anything else, to be honest. Then Shadow Shaman, obviously a very, very good support right now. The main thing is that the wards don't attack as quickly, but they also do way less damage to Roche. So that's a pretty significant nerf, and just the fact that this hero was like soloing Roche, which is kind of insane. But was that really the biggest of deal? I don't know. I still think it's a very, very good hero overall. Then Silencer base strength decreased by 1, kind of whatever, who cares? Skywrath Mage, I love seeing this hero get buffs just because it's one of my favorite heroes because it's like all or nothing. You're just like nuking people to death, but you also die in like 2 hits from any carry, which is kind of fun. I like those heroes that are really good at one thing, but obviously have very big weaknesses. So I like when they're buffing the hero because I just want to see the hero do infinity damage, but also have 500 health for the entire game. It's kind of cool. But anyway, the Shard number of bolts increased from 2 to 3. That's a pretty significant change, honestly, especially because Shard, you're probably going to get it in a lot of different games. And now you have these 3 arcane bolts, which is kind of ridiculous. But again, I don't know. Is that enough to really bring it into the meta as a really good 4 position? We'll have to see. Again, another one that I would love to see is like a good mid laner. Same thing with Silencer. I would love to see these heroes as good mid laners to kind of change up the mid meta if we could. Also, Snapfire, decent buffs, honestly. Cooldown decrease for Cookie early on, which can be significant in the lane. And then Mortimer Kisses, the duration that the kiss actually stays on the ground. It stays for 0.5 seconds more. Again, not a huge deal, but getting those last ticks in or just kind of making it annoying for an enemy to walk through an area can be pretty significant. I love Snapfire personally as a support. Every time I do a tier list or anything, I always say, hey, if you want to focus on a support that's really good, like in almost every patch, even if it has a bad win rate, if you learn how to play the hero, you can have insane impact because you can farm so much and you have good impact early with this ultimate. I love to see Snapfire buffs because I love playing it as a support. Then we have Spirit Breaker. This is pretty significant because the base damage overall is increased by 3, but then base damage at level 1 increased. You can kind of just see the numbers here. I don't think that's like a different change overall. It's just the same change listed twice, which is kind of funny. But honestly, 72 damage, like max damage, is kind of insane. This is another one where there's 10 damage. So really, it's actually like 67 damage is kind of the damage that you would see. But having that max damage and then you're buying stats on top of that, and if you're laning, I mean, this makes mid Spirit Breaker or off-lane Spirit Breaker much better because of that damage that you're getting. So look out for that to be a thing. I mean, it's already sort of a thing, but I like having Spirit Breaker on my team, hate seeing it on the enemy team. I think it's just actually a really good hero in pubs overall. Techie's intelligence increased by 0.2. Not a big deal. TA, base damage decreased, which is good. This hero is a lane-dominating hero that just destroys last hits, destroys lanes, just snowballs super hard. So having it just not as good early makes sense. And then the 25 meld bash, whatever, not a big deal. I mean, 0.2 seconds from 1 to 0.8, it matters, but it's not the hugest deal. I mean, people actually were going for the refraction instances anyway half the time, so it's interesting that they decided that the 1 second needed to be nerfed. I mean, this is a pretty good talent, though, if you don't have, any kind of way to stop TPs or anything like that. Through BKB, and there's a lot of heroes that you need to do that for. So anyway, this is a good talent. It makes sense that they're doing this. I don't like TA in general. I like to see the hero nerfed, so I'm happy about that. Tinker, Keen Conveyance nerfed. Keen Conveyance nerfed from 80 seconds to 50 seconds. Who cares? No one cares. Why does this matter? Like, what is happening? You're just refreshing stuff. Don't talk to me about this change. Treant Protector, damage per second increased from 85 to 95. Not a huge deal, but does matter over time when you're getting that damage in when you use Overgrowth. So this can be a significant damage spell, don't get me wrong. So 10 damage, not that bad actually. Then Undying, a great hero right now, so it makes sense they're nerfing Rotting Mitts. Basically, the zombies that are summoned go away when you die. And then the vision for Tombstone is decreased by 100. Not a huge deal, but it does matter if you're using this to give vision on a high ground or something like that. And then level 10 decay damage decreased by 10. So across the board, Undying is worse. I just think Undying overall is not as good. I already thought that it wasn't as good as an off lane as some people thought. It was still decent, but I think these nerfs just make it even worse. I know these aren't huge, but I just personally like it more as a support, more as a 5 that just like dominates the lane and then does a lot of those same things from the 5 position. Then next we have Ursa, very good carry, has been good for a long time. So they're kind of nerfing the things that it does that are not like the main aspect of the hero, but the survivability with the Ag's Shard on Enrage, just 0.1 second, not a huge deal, but every small little amount of time that you're basically invulnerable does matter with this hero when like it adds up over time, especially if you're picking the double Earthshock charges and you're going for Octarine Core and stuff like that. So it does make sense. This health as damage rescaled is kind of like, I don't really know if that's a huge deal. I mean, 0.25 is not nothing, don't get me wrong. So maybe this is one of those things where you underestimate how much this actually does, where once you get into a game, you realize, oh, wait, I actually do way less damage or whatever like that. So it is more of like a feel thing. So we'll see if this is enough to take Ursa out of the meta. I mean, this 0.25, that might be enough to actually make this hero way worse. It's hard to say because I would have to do the math on that and say, oh, it's only like 10 damage. And you're like, oh, it doesn't matter at all. But maybe it's like a lot and it actually feels really bad because this hero is all about bursting heroes. So they nerf kind of what the hero mainly does is bursting with his damage and then surviving with Earthshock with the shard and stuff like that. Then Venge, base damage increased by 2, so not a huge deal. And agility gain decrease, so another one of those where they're just being very annoying, increasing the damage but decreasing the agility gain, just being stupid and doing opposite things for no reason. They don't understand why they're doing that. They just do stuff for no reason. Then we have Viper, and look out for Viper to become a mid hero that maxes Nether Toxin. And I understand it's the minimum DPS, so it's not like, the maximum DPS really matters if you're just sticking it on the creep wave and it's burning. So that's not the biggest deal, but it ends up being pretty good if heroes are walking in and out, or you just want to get a quick amount of damage in, or, the creeps in the camp keep walking in and out and stuff like that. It can be very significant. I mean, 15 damage as the minimum amount of damage is a lot, especially if you're dominating in the mid lane, trying to push people out of the creep wave, because even if they step in it for a second, that's a pretty good amount of damage. So look out for that. It's not the biggest buff overall, especially, if they increase the amount of total damage this is doing by 15, that would be absurd, I think. I think it would just be absolutely broken. But I think this might be enough to make it good enough in the mid lane that you might see more Vipers in the mid lane, because typically people just max Q on Viper. That's the typical thing you're going to be doing. But Nether Toxin maxing has been a thing that has been a build for a while from the mid lane. It just hasn't been as popular. We haven't seen it around. But you can totally do this as a farming build on Viper. So look out for that to potentially be a thing in this patch. We'll see. This might be one of the bigger buffs in the patch. Hard to say. Wraith King, slow duration decreased by 1 second. Not a huge deal, honestly, with the Ags and everything. It does matter, but it's kind of whatever. And then Zeus, Heavenly Jump. Leap distance increased early on, but later on, not as big of a deal. But that just means that 1 point that you're getting, that value point, is good. But Zeus has been nerfed so much that I don't think that one Heavenly Jump value point, having more distance, really matters all that much. But hey, whatever love Zeus can get matters, especially if you're, getting that 1 point in the mid lane you need to survive or something like that. So that could bring it back into the meta, especially in pubs, lower MMR pubs, just making this hero more survivable. It could matter. But overall, that is 7.39D. I think if we see this for the most part, the hero changes are really not significant. We have some decent buffs on some heroes, but it's mostly nerfs to like Nature's Prophet, to SF, to Puck, to Shadow Shaman. The buffs on heroes like Snapfire or Skywrath. I don't think these are huge, or Viper or something like that. Even Sand King, but it's small buffs and nuffs. Yep. Buffs and nerfs all around. Really, the biggest thing, I think, in this entire patch is going to be Blade Mail. I just straight up think this is a huge nerf to the hero, or to any hero that buys this. Huge nerf to the item overall. And so a lot of these offlaners that like to buy Blade Mail, like Axe, who also got nerfed, it might be like, okay, instead of Axe being S tier now, it's like A, maybe even B. And that can be a very big deal, because now if you're changing the offlaners that are good, then you're changing the matchups in terms of the game for what carries are good and all that kind of stuff. So it can have a drastic impact on the meta. Just one change like this where Blade Mail's not nearly as good as it once was. Like, if you go into a game with Blade Mail and it really feels like it does no return damage, then the item is completely dead, and then every hero that buys it just sucks, and now we have a complete shift in the meta, even though there haven't been that many big changes in this patch. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that has the potential to be the reality of this patch. So anyway, that's 7.39D. Oh, also, other thing, we got this thing where I guess we get free Quarturos Curios. We get like free skins, I guess, if we just play the game or something or whatever, and he's untrustworthy. Haha, that's very funny, guys. So yeah, there's that too. So, I don't care about that. I'm not a skins guy. I know I say that all the time, but anyway, that's the patch. That's 7.39D. As always, guys, well, let me know what you think about the patch in general. Not a huge one. Let me know what you think the biggest changes were, or what you're looking forward to in the meta. As always, guys, if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.